Swamy, Faith Journal continues after this break. Welcome, Dr. Swamy.
Thank you.
The question I have is on the 60th anniversary of independence, India's independence, the nation is emerging economically. What impact is that having on faith and culture in the nation overall?
Well, it's having two different types of effects. One is a positive one, one is a negative one. And I don't know how it's all going to work out because globalization is moving at breakneck speed. The positive side is that suddenly the rich Indians, well-to-do Indians are feeling the need for how to manage stress, and they are increasingly turning to spiritual leaders in India, and the spiritual leaders are getting enormous audiences, very large. I mean, we politicians feel jealous of the turnout, with people coming. Not only in politics, we have to bring people, we have to arrange for their accommodation, the travel and so on. Here, people not only come on their own, but they also pay for listening to these spiritual leaders, yoga teachers. So there's been a tremendous growth of temples, temple revenues, and so on. And as the prosperity has increased, the possibility of a renaissance in Hinduism, thanks to these broad-minded spiritual teachers who have spawned across the country. They've also come abroad, some of them, and set up places here. But the negative factor is there were certain glorified institutions which are under threat. For instance, the family. The family has been a great shock absorber for the community. We have no social security system in place even today, and the unemployed or the handicapped and so on were always accommodated within the family. And the net result is that this family is being disrupted into nuclear families. We have 4 families to 5 families living together in a big place, now being converted into nuclear families. And so naturally this is one aspect. The second is the taste revolution that is taking place in terms of food, in terms of clothing and so on. That is making people concerned that whether we are losing our roots, we are forgetting our past. And the desire to learn Indian languages and so on is going down because English is such a premium, and we have so much access to learning English. So these are negative aspects. But I think if I go by historical trends of India, the way of thinking of a Hindu is so ingrained. I think in the end the compromise will be worked out. We'll have a modern Hindu who will not have the past obscurantist practices and prejudices and superstitions, and at the same time committed to Hindu institutions. And I think globalization may help, because we see this abroad too, that rich Indians are playing a major role in ensuring that good textbooks are written on Hinduism and so on in modern language.
You see, the challenge with globalization is how do you maintain your own culture in the face of this huge, I guess it's mostly Western, mostly American culture. The Japanese seem to have done a fairly good job at it. How is India going to withstand this wave, so to speak?
Well, I think the Japanese haven't done a good job. They're still, I think they're still too narrow-minded. They're unable to accept foreigners. They have a huge demographic problem, and I think
maybe I should have qualified good job to say they've actually put the fortress walls up, is what I should have said.
Yeah, that's right. I think Indians that way have a much more open approach, and we can absorb. We have absorbed in the past. We can absorb, and I don't think that I find, for example, 10 years ago, if there was an Indian marriage, a Hindu marriage, the bridegroom would be dressed in Western clothes, which is Thai clothes. And now that's gone. There was 10 years ago, children were calling their mothers and fathers mummy and daddy. That's gone. And wearing traditional Indian clothes has now become a thing to do on social occasions. Not in the workplace, but certainly in social occasions.
So there's a dual process going on. There's globalization, but at the same time, and you'll have to explain this to me, why are cities like Bombay being renamed Mumbai and Madras has become Chennai, etc.? What's going on here?
Well, in the case of Bombay becoming Mumbai, it's understandable because in the local language, it was always called Mumbai. And so why should you use it by the anglicized name?
Fair enough.
Bombay? But in the case of Chennai, of course, I think it's stupidity, because Chennai was never the old name for the city of Madras, and that's why the Madras High Court has said we'll continue to be known as Madras High Court. We will not change.
So what was that about?
That was the party in power had a phobia about if they were to go back to the old name, the non-British name of then it would have been called Mylapore or something else, which had connotations with Hinduism, and the present dispensation in power is anti-religious. I'm
fascinated by your comment earlier about how people of means are now returning to faith.
Yes.
How does that? What are you seeing? How's that demonstrated?
Well, it's happening here too. For instance, I saw in Business Week, which is an American magazine for businessmen, that for stress control, they find the teaching of Bhagavad Gita will help. For instance, the idea that you have freedom in this world, you have freedom as a human being only to do action, but the fruit of that action, how it will come, in what form it will come, is not in your hands. That's in the hand, as God says, in my hands. I might give you a lousy job and a wonderful wife, or a lousy wife and a wonderful job. You're not going to have everything. So this reduces, this kind of mental outlook reduces stress. So I think the philosophy of Hinduism is extremely scientific and appealing, and our people find yoga, for instance, as a way of removing many of the ailments that we have. Our foods, for example, now the Americans are telling us that Alzheimer has disease has such a low incidence in India because of the turmeric that you use in your curry, right. And that's why your Indians are lucky. So there's a reaffirmation of the faith in fact, through globalization, you find more foreigners coming to India and going to our religious institutions.
True, the exchange is going the other way. Ayurvedic medicine, for example.
Yeah, that's right, Ayurvedic medicine. So many of the things, and now people are acknowledging that it is we who gave the world decimal and zero and algebra and even rocketry. So it's new sense. So pride is also coming with the knowledge of with this globalization.
Fascinating. After the break, I want to talk some more about that. Please stay with us. We'll be back shortly.